What's up, everybody? Welcome to Pizza Bones, episode number 3. You can eat that Crust Productions, proud member of the You Run Podcast Network, where you can find all our shows and all everybody else's shows at yourunpodcast.com. I am your host, Greg, and joining me is Nate Harvey. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm starting to get used to this horror thing you're dragging me through here. You know,
That's
less
right.
nightmares, and I'm sleeping through the night again. So we're getting there.
Getting your true crime feet all
Yeah.
wet.
Oh yeah.
Like I forgot to do in the Ed Kemper episode, let me preface this by saying this is a true crime comedy podcast. We are not trying to offend anybody, nor the victims. So we're just going to have a little fun while we discuss true crime. So please don't take it serious. And if something is going to offend you, then I suggest you find another podcast. But please don't.
Don't. Yeah.
And tonight we are discussing Mr. Ed Gein.
Yes, the Mad Butcher.
Yeah, and right at the top, we're going to just say that, you know, he's responsible for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, Wild Bill from Silence of the Lambs. You know, without Ed Gein, we might not have the horror that we have today. So,
Yeah, and soon to be on, what is it, The Monster? Is that the...
yeah, with Charlie
that's what-
Hunnam.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm excited for that.
I love Charlie Hunnam. Green Street Hooligans. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's amazing. It's got Frodo in it as well.
Frodo!
But yeah, we're going to get into it. We're going to start with the patriarch of the family, Mr. George Philip Gein, born in 1873. In 1876, his whole family died in a flash flood on the way to the store. Yeah, it's a horrible way to go.
Did you know that there's I believe it's Arizona, it's illegal to put a goat in a bathtub overnight because of that.
I did know that. I didn't know.
Oh yeah,
because
that came on your podcast. I think is where I got that info.
Yeah, that was either Ryan or Seamus talking about that.
Yes.
So,
well, it stuck with
about
me.
Goats. I knew about goats in tubs.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, then scratch that from the record.
Yeah,
it's already listed.
Yeah. So we knew his whole family died in a flash flood on the way to like the grocery store or the general store, they would call it. So obviously he grew up a drunk and he was prone to anger and self-pity.
Those things are correlated?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, that's weird.
That'll drive you to drink when your whole family gets carried away in a flash flood.
That'll do it.
Augusta Wilhelm Lurk is born in 1878. I know I butchered her name.
Yeah.
As she grew up and grew older, her life was shaped by religion. She was a stern disciplinarian. She was self-righteous and domineering and self-assured in every one of her beliefs. She would preach to anyone who would listen, evangelical Christian, and she blamed all the problems in the world on all the harlots and hussies.
Jeez. It seems to be a common trend with these serial killers. The moms aren't the Mother of the Year recipients.
Yeah, they either have really bad moms or lame daddies.
Yeah. Huh. Moral of the story, be good to your kids.
Yes, be great to your kids. Be amazing to your kids.
Or you'll see what happens.
Yeah. December 11th, 1900, George meets and marries Augusta Gein. She wanted to marry him because he was tall, and she liked that about him.
Thank God she never met Ed Kemper.
Yeah, right? She thought sex was a despicable act, and it was not to be enjoyed, only to use to procreate.
Ugh. And how many kids did she have?
Just 2.
Yeah, so she wasn't getting it too often then.
Right? She said if we were meant to have sex, God would have made it enjoyable.
Ugh, it's tragedy.
So the marriage was horrible. George was constantly berated by Augusta, and he was an aggressively lazy drunk. Sometimes he would go days without even talking, and she would come home and he'd like flail at her and stuff. And anytime he would strike her, like she would just go to her knees and like pray for his death.
Ugh. Jeez.
So a year after they're married, 1901, Henry George Gein is born. August 27th, 1906, little Mr. Ed Gein is born.
A little Edward.
And Ed Theodore Gein she actually wanted a girl, so that will come back later.
That makes a lot of sense actually when you say that.
At this point, Augusta and George owned a grocery store in La Crosse Country, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Ed worshipped his mom right away from the start. He would describe her as pure goodness, and would later on tears would come anytime he spoke of her, and he always disappointed her, like no matter what, whether it be falling down the stairs as like a child, or there was one point where he went to the store and it was like less than a block away to get like some grain and some bread or whatever, and he like lost all the money on the way there.
Oh, I'd hate to come home to that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
Right. They had no running water, no electricity in the house they lived in. Augusta did not like La Crosse. She thought it was like full of hussies and harlots, and just thought it was a bad influence on the place. So they moved their family to Plainfield, Wisconsin, where it was more,
Sounds a little tamer there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like farm life.
Mm-hmm. Less floozies.
When Augusta and George owned the grocery store, Ed had witnessed animals getting slaughtered for meat in the back, because they had like in the back where they would like, make the meat, cut the meat down. And like he walked back, he was forbid to go back there. He walked back there one time and saw his parents basically covered in blood and gore dripping off his mom. So that made an impact.
He was aroused by that, I believe. Is that true? Or
he might have been. I know he just saw his mom covered in blood and it just left a mark on him.
Mm-hmm. A positive one.
Yeah. Ed had all sorts of behavior problems where he just kind of, people chalked up to him being odd. He had a slightly droopy eye, and he was a very sensitive kid, and he would cry when people made fun of his eye. So his mom would always just go off on the world and how bad it was, and how, you need your mom, you need your family, and everything else is horrible. She would read Bible passages to the kids. They would gather around her, and they would just read Bible passages, or she would read them Bible passages. Like right up to they were like 38 and 34. They would like sit around.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's not the mental image I had.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of kids, Wow.
April 4th, 1940, George Gein dies of heart failure at the age of 66.
Oof.
Basically kind of drank himself to death.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
After that, Ed had to like kind of pick up the chores and pick up the slack around the house. Luckily, George didn't do a ton because he was a lazy drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have much to do, but Ed would be a babysitter. People in Plainville would trust him to babysit their kids.
Oh, God. Can you imagine that now? Just looking back, be like, oh, yeah. Remember good old Ed, the babysitter?
Yeah. It's like people
talk about that.
Yeah, people like, hey, I was raised this way and I'm fine. It's like, I was babysat by Ed Gein and I'm fine. Look at me.
Right? Just don't look at my belt.
May 6, 1944, Henry Gein dies. There was a brush fire that broke out the farm, and Henry and Ed were like frantically trying to put it out. And so they kind of got lost, and Ed like went and got the authorities, went and got help, and he didn't know where his brother was, but he somehow led the authorities back right to his body.
His unburned body?
His unburned body. So he died of an apparent asphyxiation due to smoke inhalation.
Now, he had bruises on the back of his neck. Was that?
He did.
So no burns, bruising. He was lost, but found immediately.
Exactly.
Sounds a bit sus to me.
Yep. So, I mean, it's still kind of a thing where people potentially think that Ed Gein killed his brother, but there's no proof on that,
Right.
But no burn marks. He was led right to the body. The authorities were led right to the body. So Henry's dead.
Yeah.
So now he has his mom all to himself.
Oh, yeah.
Just like he wanted. He's always trying to please his mom. He loved his mom. Eddie was definitely a mommy's boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the mom didn't really care too much about Henry anyway. Like, Ed was her little project.
Yeah. No one cares about Henry.
Yeah, poor Henry. He was the semi-normal one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can't have that. It's weird or bust. That's it.
Yes. So Augusta had a stroke, and Ed did whatever he could to take care of her. He actually kind of liked that because she was depending on him more. Ed took care of all her needs. but she still didn't have complete faith in him.
Mm.
We'll talk about this transaction for grain and straw with this gentleman, Bill Smith.
Bill Smith.
Ed was supposed to go along and do this deal, but the mother, Augusta, did not trust him, so she made the trip on this wagon, and it was a couple
She didn't
miles.
trust Bill, or she didn't trust Ed?
She didn't trust Ed.
Okay. Well, I mean, he did lose all that money going
Exactly,
to the store,
when he was a child,
I don't know
so
if I trust him either.
that stuck with her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She went along for the sale, even though she was weak, because she didn't trust Ed. When they got there, they saw Bill Smith beating the crap out of a dog, arguing with a woman he had been sleeping with. And they weren't married. And you know how she is with harlots and hussies.
Mm-hmm.
She could care less about him. Yeah, she could care less about him beating the dog. She was just more upset about the lady. So it kind of drove her mad with stress. And it contributed to her last stroke. And she died.
Oof.
So December 29th, 1944, Augusta dies.
And that's it for his family, right?
Yes, that's it for his family.
Okay.
So old Eddie's living alone now.
Oh boy, left to his own vices.
Yep.
Where can we go from here?
Only up, I think. I think it's just going to get better. So at the funeral, you know, he sobbed and bawled. A local lady at the funeral had tried to console him, and he basically told her, "Now I'm alone. I'm truly alone in this world."
Did that come across positive? Do we know, or is that did he sound mournful, or was he kind of excited by being alone at this point?
No, I think it was mournful. He was
mournful.
Basically, it was sad and mournful.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now I'm alone. I'm truly alone in this world. I think I'm alone now.
That's where I was gonna go with that, and I held back because I'm not the singer here.
Yeah, neither am I. No. So eventually, he starts having visions and hearing his mom's voice. And in 1947, Eddie starts robbing graves.
Oh, just digging them up.
And he wants to rob graves for suits because he basically wants to be a woman.
Oh. Okay.
40 visits over 5 years. Sometimes he would be in a daze and he would just forget and he would just leave the grave. Sometimes he would come back with stuff. Macabre stuff. Adeline Watkins is the only girl Ed ever dated. They went on 2 dates. They went to a movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and basically just sat there and did not talk.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you're not really supposed to talk during movies.
This is true.
So he got that right.
He's got good movie etiquette.
Exactly. His mom trained him well for that.
Now, Eddie, you shut up!
You do not talk during these.
Yeah, he was probably hearing her yell at him when he was at the movies.
Yep.
Eddie, you shut your mouth. I taught you better. So on their second date, she complained about her mom, and that was it for Ed.
That'll do it.
Yeah, he's like, you talking shit about your mom? Fuck that.
Yep.
Dude had nothing but mom love.
Nothing.
Also, a fun fact, he ate pork and beans for almost a decade. That's literally all he ate.
That's it?
Yep.
Really?
For a decade. I'm sure he branched out eventually. And
did he have pigs on his farm? Is that was he into slaughtering his own pigs? And so he always had pork on hand, or?
That I'm not 100%. I know he was supposedly scared of blood.
Okay. Because he did live on a farm, though, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, but we don't know if there was livestock or anything like that?
I do not know that.
Okay.
I'm assuming there's livestock, but...
Mm-hmm. He's not Farmer Ed, so...
Oh, maybe that's where that came from.
Oh, shit. Plot twist.
1951, hunters vanish. Victor Travis, Ray Burgess disappear in Plainfield, leaving only a jacket and their dog behind in the woods in Gein's property.
Okay.
December 8th, 1954, Mary Hogan's disappears. Mm. Now, Mary Hogan's was a bar owner. Mm-hmm. She was basically she had a thick German accent and a thick German body, just like Augusta.
Oh yeah.
But this is the type of woman that Augusta warned Ed about. Mm-hmm. You know, she was
promiscuous.
Yep. Ed still had a bit of a crush on her.
Okay.
And he didn't have his mom to tell him no.
All right.
So his mom basically probably would have dressed him down, said, "I don't think so. This chick's a hussy. Get away from her." December 8th, when she was closing, Ed walked in, put a .38 caliber bullet right in her head.
Oh, God. Front or back?
Probably front.
All right.
Actually, you know what? Maybe he snuck up to her and get her in the back.
Okay. Dead nonetheless.
Yep. He brought her back to the Gein house, strung her up, and burned the parts of the body they didn't need or use.
Wait. Sorry. Which parts are unnecessary?
Oh, we'll find out.
Okay. Let me have it.
But so he field dressed these people like a deer. But like I said, he hated the sight of blood. He claimed to be in a daze when he worked on bodies.
Okay.
And of course, Mary Hogan was a business owner just like his mom, so there was this attraction there.
A little connection.
Yep.
Something familiar about this broad.
So he was drinking at Mary's bar the night of the disappearance, so he probably did shoot her in the back of the head. But the cops questioned him, and they're like, "Hey, Ed, you know anything about Mary?" He's like, "Oh no, I was drinking, and that's it." And they were like, "All right." Nobody believed that old Eddie would do it.
Right.
Ed Gein eventually tried to switch houses with a younger couple.
Switch houses?
Yeah, because his house was so big. Like, I don't know if he was just trying to get out of the house where he was doing his business.
Okay.
Losing his mind, or maybe just trying to get away from Augusta's talking.
Yep.
But so the couple came in because his house is huge and their house is tiny. So like, yeah, let's just switch houses. But they complained of a gross smell, and they said the floors were slippery like grease.
Yeah, not good.
So he had a friend named Bobby Hill. Hey, Bobby.
Hey.
And Bobby was the only one to ever go into Ed's house. Ed had a hard time connecting with adults.
Okay.
He was friends with Bobby Hill, who was like a teenager.
Oh.
He allegedly brought out a shrunken head, and when asked where it came from, he said his cousin gave it to him from the war in the Philippines.
How does one shrink a head?
I think you need witch doctor dust, like in Beetlejuice.
I mean, yes. I mean, I've seen that in action. I'm just curious what the actual process. You know, what would shrink a skull?
Some salt.
Some salt.
That's a snail. So the couple, or the lady from the couple, joked, said, "Oh, is that the room where you keep all the shrunken heads?" Because Ed, he would love to joke about that stuff. Like they would ask, like, "Oh, hey, where's Mary Hogan?" And he's like, "Oh, she's hanging at my house right now." And like that was one of his favorite jokes to make. And when the lady asked about the shrunken heads, he goes, "No, that's the other room."
So here's the deal. What you do is you boil the head.
Ew.
For a very specific amount of time. They won't tell me what that very specific time is. I don't know why, but that's what it says. Skin and the hair separates from the skull, allowing them to shrink at different rates. Then the eyelids are sewn shut, and the mouth is stuck closed with a peg.
Be careful what you Google, because they'll come get you.
Don't worry, I'm on my kid's computer, so it's totally fine.
I know how to remove the flesh from the head. You just bury it in the ground.
Yeah, I heard Drano is great too.
Yeah, Drano is great, but if you take a head and bury it in your backyard and leave it there for a while, it will be a skull eventually because all the bugs will eat it.
So, kind of side topic. We found a dead possum in the yard a couple of weeks ago. I said, "Why not?" So I put it up on the hill so we could see the skull and bones later on. There's nothing left.
The body's gone completely?
Yeah, I mean, there's fur fragments and some bone fragments, but I wanted to see a skull and some all gone. So it was kind of disappointing. This is what you've done. You've rubbed off on me. So now I want to go see dead opossum.
No animal torture here. No, that died in the wild.
It was wild.
Ed was an avid reader. He loved reading detective magazines, adventure stories, about cannibalism, adventures. He was obsessed with Nazis. He was obsessed with this Nazi, Isla Cook, the bitch of Brukenwald.
Oh, God. She sounds like a very nice woman.
Right? So she would collect human heads and use skin for lampshades.
Nice. Wonder what kind of tones that gives off. I guess it depends on the skin.
Yeah.
Nice warm light or cool light. I don't know.
A great song about Ed Gein that I used to advertise all the time is Blind Melon Skinned. It's fantastic. Off Soup. Is
it really about him? Or is that a pun? Okay.
No, it's really about him. It's the lyrics are fucking wild.
Really? I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. Huh. That's off the album Soup.
All right.
One of the best albums of all time, but I'm getting sidetracked. He
Yeah.
was also obsessed with Christine Jorgensen, who was the first person to have sexual reassignment surgery.
Oh, so trendy.
His mom wanted a daughter. Obviously, that rubbed off on him. He was
Oh
obsessed with
yeah.
being a female.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. There's definitely a correlation there for sure.
If Ed was around today and had the internet or had like groups to reach out to, he might have been just normal. He just might, Ed
Yeah.
just could have been trans.
This all could have been avoided with a
Yes.
little social justice. God damn.
November 16th, 1957, Bernice Worden goes missing.
Dun dun dun.
She was also built like Augusta.
All right. Like some thick.
Yeah, a little trend thing. He would love the song Thick.
Yes, he would.
Come on now. So he was in there the day before asking the son, Frank Worden, who was also a deputy and a helper at the store. It was going to be the first day of hunting season. So he was asking if he was going to be gone all day doing the hunting. He's like, yep, I'll be gone doing hunting. So he was there the night before, and he wanted to pick up antifreeze. So he basically said, I'll be back to pick up antifreeze in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Ed shows up, gets his antifreeze. Bernice writes him a receipt for the antifreeze, walks out, decides to go back in. Says he's thinking about trading in his gun. So she takes down a 22 for him to look at. She's got her back to the wall. He takes out a 22 bullet, loads it. She looks out the window and says, I don't like Chevrolets. Boom, back of the head, shot.
Damn.
A Plainfield resident reported that the local hardware store had been closed the entire day and that the store's truck had been driven out from the rear of the building at around 9:30 a.m. Some locals believe this is due to deer hunting season. However, when Deputy Sheriff Frank Worden entered the locked hardware store owned by his mother around 5 p.m., there was no sign of 50-year-old Bernice Worden, except for bloodstains on the wood floor. It appeared to be a robbery because the cash register was left open.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Worden told investigators that Ed Gein had been the last customer at the store the evening before his mother's disappearance. He said that he would return the next morning for a gallon of antifreeze.
So he's top of the list.
Exactly. And he was also seen by locals loitering around the premises that morning. And a sales slip for a gallon of antifreeze was found.
Mm-hmm.
During the evening that same day, Gein was arrested at West Plainfield grocery store under suspicion of robbery and suspected kidnapping. Officers of the Waushara County Sheriff's Department then set off to search the Gein farm. And this is where the fun begins.
Yes, I'm sure it does.
So when police arrived at the dilapidated farmhouse on November 17th, 1957, little did they realize the chaos that was contained within. And it was almost impossible to walk through the rooms due to the junk and rotting garbage that covered the floor and counters.
Ugh.
The smell of filth and decomposition was almost overwhelming.
Oh man, have you ever gone into somebody's house like that? No, I mean not with dead bodies and weird stuff, but
I can't say that I have.
Yeah, I used to work maintenance, and some of the apartments I'd go into are it's just absolutely amazing how people live and the stench that they can put up with. So I can't even imagine how bad this is, because I feel like I've gone through some pretty bad places.
Well, I once lived at the House That Never Sleeps with Ryan Wilson, co-host of You Gonna Eat That Crust podcast, and those guys, a couple of them just started drinking for the first time, and they would drink right up into the morning, go get more beer, drink again, and they would throw their trash and trash bags down in the basement. They had to call like a hazmat team to like fucking come in. People pooped in the cat litter box. It was fucking gross.
Well, actually, people do that at the school next to us, but different motives though.
I also got my leg cut by a carney's toenail.
Oh God!
Yeah, I turned into a carney for like.
You still have a leg. I'm surprised we didn't have to get that thing amputated after that.
So one of my legs is thicker than the other. It survived infection, and I almost had to have it severed.
Oh God, nasty.
Outside, local sheriff Arthur Shiley inspected the wooden shed with his flashlight and felt something brush against his jacket. As he looked up, he saw a large dangling carcass hanging upside down from the beams.
Ugh.
The carcass had been decapitated, cut open, and gutted. It was a shocking sight, but one that would be all too familiar during deer hunting season. But after a few moments, it sank in, and Shiley realized that it wasn't a deer at all, but the headless, butchered body of a woman.
Which woman is this?
Bernice Worden.
Dun dun dun.
They found the missing Bernice Worden dressed out like a deer, having been shot with a .22 caliber rifle with grotesque mutilations that were made after her death. As the shaken deputies searched through the ruinous farmhouse that was Ed Gein's existence, they came to realize that there were more ghastly discoveries besides Miss Warden's mutilated body.
Like what?
They stumbled upon a museum of death.
A museum of well put. Is there like a ticket agent and everything when you walk in?
Yeah, I think it's 25. Actually, probably back then it was probably $10 a ticket. No, that's still a lot.
Come on in, step right up to see the amazing House of Horror.
Probably a nickel.
Ah, true. Yeah, this is back in the day.
So there was an odd-looking bowl, which was the top of a human skull.
Nice.
Wastebasket and lampshades were fashioned from human skin. Of course, they found more human remains.
Mm.
They started this ghoulish inventory. An armchair was found to be made from human skin. You know about the belt made of nipples.
Can't get away from that one.
You can find those on Etsy right now.
Yeah, they're selling like hotcakes in October. I don't know. It's all the rage.
A pair of lips on a window shade with a drawstring. And when you pull that drawstring, you get a little smooch.
Yeah, see, people think that's gross. I just think that's practical. You know, it's just easier to get it up and down. He can practice kissing. He can get some sunlight in. It's a wonderful thing.
You get 9 female genitalia kept preserved in a shoebox, as well as 4 noses.
Ugh.
As they continued their search, more ghastly discoveries were made. There were human bones and bone fragments, fingernails from female fingers, skulls that were affixed to Gein's bedpost. That's pretty metal.
That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah. Female skulls with the top sewn off, a young girl's dress, the vulvas of 2 females judged to be about 15 years old.
Oh, God.
In a burlap sack, they found Bernice Warden's head, along with her heart, in a plastic bag. So that's why a lot of people think he's a cannibal, because the heart was found in a plastic bag, like right by his stove.
Like he's gonna cook it.
Yeah, and potentially eat it.
Mm-hmm.
In a paper bag, they found a mask made from the skin of a woman's face, along with her skull that was kept inside a box. And perhaps the most shocking of all...
Wait, there's more?
Oh, there's more. They came across the mammary suit.
The mammary suit. And what does this consist of?
A corset made from a female torso, skin from shoulder to waist, and leggings made from human leg skin.
Full unit. Wow.
So he had like 9 faces. Mm-hmm. He had 5 for wearing, and 4 for hanging, like decoration.
Okay. Well, yeah, you gotta keep the art up.
So he would put this mammary suit on, and basically he had a drum made of human skin, and he would like kind of like go out and howl on the moon. Like he would put the leggings on, put this mammary suit on, and just fucking go lose his mind outside.
And what was his mental illness? Did he has he gotten diagnosed with anything yet, or
no? Not right now. They haven't.
That'd be after he gets.
Yeah.
Okay.
As they stood there in the slaughterhouse that was the Ed Gein's farm, they wondered just how many women died at the hands of Ed Gein. You know, because all these remains, like, how many people did he kill?
Right.
And of course, they come across a room that's locked up, and they're thinking, what the hell is in this room? This house is the House of Horrors, a house of 1,000 corpses.
Right. The one that's locked has got to be the worst one.
Yep. And so they're horrified to open this door. They open the door, and the room is completely preserved. It's the only normal room in the house. And it was Augusta's room.
Okay. There we go. Now it comes full circle.
Yeah, he didn't have the heart to fuck with the room. Like, he just kept it locked up. And
no, the heart was by the stove.
Yeah. So they suspected Gein to be involved with more murders, like the bodies that were found by his house of the hunters.
Yep.
He was interviewed at the Watoma County jailhouse by investigators. Although he did not admit to any of the killings at first, after more days of silence, he began to reveal his horrific story about how he killed Miss Warden and where he acquired all the body parts found inside his house. He had difficulty remembering all the details because, like I said, he claimed he was in a daze when he did this stuff. He did recall dragging Miss Warden's body to his Ford truck, though, and taking the cash from the store and returning to his house. He did not remember shooting her in the head with a .22 caliber gun. That was the confirmed cause of death from the autopsy report, was the .22. So when the detectives asked him where the other body parts came from that were discovered in his house, he said he had stolen them from a local graveyard. Yeah, he insisted that he not murder any of these people, other than the two, potentially three with his brother.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yep.
After several more days of intense interrogation, he finally admitted to the murder of Mary Hogan, whose head had also been found in a box, while the skin from her face had been made into a mask.
Oh, the wearable mask or decorative mask?
I think that was a decorative mask.
Okay. Not quite fine enough for the weekend.
Exactly. It was more of a weekday mask.
Yeah.
So once again, he claimed to be in a dazed state at the time of the murder, and he could not remember the exact details of what transpired. He said the only thing he could remember that was he accidentally shot her. During the many hours of interrogation, Ed Gein showed no signs of emotion or remorse for his actions. And when he talked about the murders and his grave robbing exploits, he spoke with a particular matter-of-fact expression and was even cheerful at times, like almost a childlike manner.
Interesting.
Yeah, he failed to realize the enormity of his crimes.
They're already dead, so what's so bad about putting their face to good use?
Exactly. So, there now remained the question of Gein's sanity. And his lawyer suggested that during the trial he plead not guilty by reason of insanity. The authorities ordered he undergo a battery of psychological tests, which later concluded that he was, as some suspected, mentally and emotionally impaired.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, based on a few factors.
The psychiatrists and psychologists who examined him asserted that he was a schizophrenic and a sexual psychopath.
I did read somewhere that one of the psychiatrists said that they didn't really think he was that satanic or anything, based upon him just shooting his victims quickly. So a quick kill, despite what he does to the bodies after, he let the victims die instantly. So they didn't consider him to be that satanic, I guess.
Yeah, no. Again, yeah, he was treating these women like deer. Like he wasn't like, when he was doing it, he was in a dazed state, he claims. But yeah, no, I agree with that.
So all that butchering he was watching.
This condition he suffered from was attributed to the unhealthy relationship he had with his mother, Augusta, as well as his upbringing. It was determined that Gein apparently suffered from conflicted emotions towards women, along with his natural sexual attraction to them, contrasting with the unnatural attitudes his mother systematically installed in him from a young age. Because, he thought these women were harlots, hussies.
Oh, yeah.
They were bad.
Not good people.
He had developed love-hate feelings towards women, which became exaggerated and eventually evolved into this terrifying psychosis that led to all his crimes. While Ed Gein was subject to further interrogation and psychological tests, investigators continued to search the land surrounding his farm. Police eventually discovered the remains of 10 women in the Gein farmhouse. However, Eddie claimed that the remaining body parts of 8 women were those who took from a local graveyard. But the police, of course, remained skeptical because...
Yeah, what are you supposed to think at that point, Now, what do they have to do? Go back and, dig up all these graves and be like, yep, nope, that's official. That's real.
Oh, shit, we'll get to that.
Voices from the Mausoleum is your one-stop shop for everything horror. Join host Scott and Angel as they deep dive into all things horror. From movies, TV shows, books, and video games. Nobody is safe. Batten down the hatches, lock your doors, and listen to Voices from the Mausoleum, another podcast brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network.
Oh.
They believed it was possible those remains came from other women Gein had murdered, and it was eventually decided the only way police could assert the truth would be to examine the graves. After much discussion and controversy about ethical morality of exhuming the dead, police were finally permitted by the state to dig up the graves of the women. All the coffins showed clear signs of having been tampered with in most cases. The body parts or bodies were missing. So that's the thing, people had a hard time wrapping their head around. There's only a few murders, but, you're basically digging up people's family members and making fucking memory suits out of them. And
exactly.
Wearing their faces. It's a little hard to swallow, especially in the 40s and 50s.
Right. I mean, who's like, shit, let's just go dig someone up. I need to add another nipple to the belt today, Right? It's I don't know. It's an interesting way to think, I guess.
Yes. On November 29th, there would be another discovery on the Gein farmland that again would raise the issue of whether he had in fact murdered a third person. Police unearthed human skeletal remains on the farm, and it was suspected that that was the body of Victor Travis, who had vanished years earlier along with his friend Ray Burgess, the hunters.
Okay.
The remains were taken to a crime lab for examination, and tests showed the bodies were not that of a male, but of a large middle-aged woman. Police believe this was yet another graveyard souvenir of Ed Gein. Investigators attempted to implicate Gein in the disappearance of Victor Travis, as well as that of the other 3 missing people who had vanished years earlier around the Plainfield area. But in the end, the only murders Eddie could be held responsible for were Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. And Henry Gein.
Allegedly.
When the police revealed details of what was found on Ed Gein's farm, the news quickly spread throughout the town. And like I said, the reporters came from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
The whole town was in a topsy-turvy. It was nuts. Like I said, it was like the late 50s. So people aren't used to this shit.
No, it's crazy. Can you imagine if that was today? Publicity and press and madness, it would ensue.
It spread, and like children and people would make jokes and sing songs. These distasteful jokes would become known as Geiners and quickly popular around the world.
Oh, the Geiner. Nice Geiner.
Meanwhile, the residents of Plainfield had to endure the herds of reporters who flocked to the small town and disrupted the daily lives to ask them questions about Eddie. Much of what was known about Eddie's earlier life came from those who became involved surrounding Gein and contributed whether or not they knew about him or not. So Plainfield became the home of Ed Gein, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But most residents had only good things to say about him, except that he was a bit of an oddball. He had that weird, odd behavior all the time, right from a kid. And, of course, things got a little weirder. People were pretty pissed off about their family members' graves getting dug up and violated.
Understandably.
They only dug up, like, a couple, and then they stopped because they're like, all right, we believe you.
Yeah. Yeah, that must take a toll on everyone involved. I mean, not good.
After spending a period of 30 days in a mental institution for evaluation, Ed Gein was declared mentally incompetent and could no longer be tried for first-degree murder. He was committed to the Central State Hospital in Waupun, Wisconsin, and not long after the sentence was handed down, his farm and some other belongings went up on auction.
Did you see how much the property was appraised at?
I did not.
195 acres. How much do you think it was appraised at?
That I don't know.
It's a really good deal.
I'm not a land guy. I don't know much about land.
All right, well, I'll give you a hint. If it was 2023, it's the equivalent of $50,000.
Jesus.
Only 4,700 at the time.
That actually doesn't seem like that much, though.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I mean, 50,000 is not a lot for 195 acres.
For real.
That's solid. Bulldoze that house and you're good.
After a period of 10 years spent in the mental institution where he was recovering, the courts finally decided Gein was competent to stand trial. These proceedings began on January 22nd, 1968, and would determine whether he was guilty or not by reason of insanity for the murder of Bernice Worden. The actual trial began on November 7th, 1968, and Eddie looked on as some 7 witnesses took the stand to give evidence. Several of those who testified were the lab technicians who performed the autopsy on Miss Worden, along with former deputy sheriff and another sheriff. And after only 1 week, the evidence seemed heavily stacked against Eddie, and the judge reached his verdict. Eddie was found guilty of first-degree murder. However, because Eddie was found to have been insane at the time of the killing, he was later found not guilty by the reason of insanity and acquitted. The families of Bernice Worden, Mary Hogan, and the families of those whose graves were robbed would never believe justice had ever been served. They thought Ed Gein had escaped the punishment that he deserved. But there was nothing more they could do to reverse the court's decision. Soon after the trial, he was escorted back to the Central State Hospital for the criminally insane, and there he would remain for the rest of his life, where he would spend his days happy and comfortable.
In a nice cell.
He was described as a model patient. Ed Gein was happy at the hospital. Happier, perhaps, than he had ever been in his life. He got along well enough with other patients. For the most part, he kept to himself. He was eating 3 square meals a day. He continued to be an avid reader. He also enjoyed the regular chats he had with the staff psychologists and enjoyed the handicraft work he was assigned.
Wow. He does seem like a pretty crafty guy. So
Stone polishing, rug making, and other forms of occupational therapy.
Oh, good.
He had even developed an interest in ham radios and had been permitted to use the money he had earned to order an inexpensive receiver. All in all, he was a perfectly amiable, even docile patient. One of the few in the hospital had never required tranquilizing medication to keep his craziness under control.
Well, that's good. It kept the cost low.
Yeah, so everyone's probably getting shot up and like tranquiled, and this guy's just living his life, living his best life.
Yep, just crafting away, one craft at a time.
So after a long fight with cancer, Eddie Gein died on July 26, 1984. He was buried in Plainfield Cemetery, next to his mother Augusta, and not far from the graves they had desecrated years earlier.
You think anyone tried to dig him up?
I'm wearing them right now. I'm wearing his leggings.
Yeah.
And I got his face on.
I could hear it in your voice that there was something kind of off about it, that you were wearing one of your, masks.
One of my masks. It's Tuesday. It's a mask night.
Yeah.
The crimes of Ed Gein have had an enormous influence on popular culture and true crime fiction. His strong dependency upon his mother, who was the dominating figure throughout his life, inspired author Robert Bloch to write a story about Norman Bates, a character based on Eddie Gein, which became the central theme of Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller, Psycho. And we talked about this at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Also, he inspired Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
He inspired Silence of the Lambs' Buffalo Bill. And I almost feel like he definitely inspired a little bit of Friday the 13th as well, too. There's some mommy issues going in on there as well, too.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget the great Steve Russell. He did a film on him as well that was aired on PBS. It was Ed Gein the Musical. So, yeah, in 2010. Yeah.
Ooh, Ed Gein the Musical.
Yeah, can you imagine? Can you imagine what that's like?
The hair on my skin is rising up.
Yeah. No, so I didn't realize how much he did inspire. There's a song called Nipple Belt.
Ooh. From
the band Tad. I've never heard that, but that's kind of cool. Slayer did a song called Dead Skin Mask. So that's one. This one's more for Israel Keys, I think. Was he into Mudvayne at all?
Oh, I'm sure. He had to have.
Oh, then you know what? This makes a lot more sense. Mudvayne had a song in 2000 called Nothing to Gain.
Nothing to Gain?
Yeah, so I'm sure that there was a little
influence.
Little influence on that one, for sure.
We'll check out one of Greg's favorite albums, Blind Melon Soup, in the song Skin.
Right? I'll have to check that out.
Rib cages out of coffee tables or into coffee tables.
Nice. Well, they're sturdy. They'll hold up over time, which is nice.
Yes, that is the story of Mr. Ed Gein.
Mr. Gein. Yeah, he's a wild one for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the monster or whatever that's called.
Oh yeah.
Get some new light on that and see
Dahmer
what they
was
go
great.
with it.
I haven't seen the Menendez brothers yet, but I'd like to see it as well.
Yeah, we just started it the other night, so
it's on Hulu.
Could be. It's either Hulu or Netflix, one of those. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think we're only the first episode. So
this is the story that will make your skin crawl, literally.
It'll crawl right off you and right onto someone else.
We want to thank you all for listening to another true crime episode of Pizza Bones. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Pod, YouTube. If you feel like donating to our Patreon, it's on Anchor. Again, we are proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. Check out Scott and Heather on their true crime show, You Run True Crime, which is fantastic. They have an excellent episode on the Tiger King.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Great.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, they interview him. It's awesome.
Wait, what?
Oh, yeah. They talked to him on the phone.
Get the fuck out. Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, Death and Entertainment just did it as well, too. But I got to say, You Run did it better.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, for sure.
During the pandemic, me and Adrian used to make stupid cat videos like that. We'd pretend to be Tiger King.
That's awesome.
So I'll have to show you that one of these days. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, check out yourunpodcast.com. A ton of great shows on there. You can find all our shows. You can find all their shows, and there's something for everybody. There's a lot of good shows on there. If you want to give us a review, give us 5 stars. We'd love that. If you want to write something nice about us, that would be awesome as well. And again, we appreciate you listening, and thank you so much. Nate, anything to say?
No, I just appreciate you having me do this, and it's a lot of fun, and can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, I think we're going to be
Do
covering
we know who we're going with?
I think we're going to be covering some BTK. I
Yeah.
know friend of the show, Sandy, wants us to do Gypsy Rose. Also,
All right.
Heather and Scott do a killer version of Gypsy Rose as well, too.
Nice.
And remember, in
Crust we trust.
Boom. Peace.